Welcome back, everyone, to another pre-season preview episode. Today, it is the Melbourne Demons, and I am joined very ably by host Jono, who is armed and ready to talk about this foundation club who had a less than foundation season.
Yeah, definitely a bit of football mortality is the way to put it for the Melbourne Football Club. Missing out on finals for the first time since 2019. And we can go further than that. Really, the first time they've been outside the top four in the club's history if you look at the non-conference ladders. So a little bit of a crazy season for them. There were definitely a lot of injuries that they can point to. You can look at stars like Harris or Purcell or Paxman missing for a lot of the season. And they did experiment with a lot of young players. You know, we've talked about this being a list in transition before. But yeah, the results speak for themselves. They started the season falling to a 1-4 record after 5 weeks, and they were pretty much out of the finals race from that point onwards. You know, they tried their best. They had 5 wins in their last 6 games, so they did end up with that positive win-loss record to finish with 6 wins, 5 losses for a result of 9th and a percentage of 87.9. But yeah, unfortunately, they just couldn't get it done in 2024.
It was the percentage loss that they had against the Bombers that sealed their fate, which was just so surprising, to be perfectly honest. It was not exactly a Bombers team that was capable of those big 10-goal margins. But in terms of what they've lost, I think the biggest one is Lil Mithen. Surely she is possibly one of the most experienced players to get a trade.
Yeah, absolutely. An absolute superstar. She's been on the wing for the Demons over the last few years, so she's going to be hard to replace. On the plus side, you know, picking up the second draft pick from the Gold Coast Suns for her does mean that they've got some talent coming in the club. So, you know, it's going to be exciting. Talk about players like Molly O'Hare for the next few years, who they ended up picking up at number 3 after bidding on Academy player Havana Harris. And then Amelia Dethridge and Maggie Mahoney coming in a little bit later in the draft are also going to be good pickups for them. They also haven't gained back Amy Mackin, who was a player that missed a lot of 2024. I thought we might see her this season, but still on the inactive list for 2025.
Yeah, that is going to be a loss. She is a serious talent. I would just like to say it might be Marnie. It might be Maggie Marnie, not Mahoney.
Maggie Marnie?
But look, you are... You are the king of pronunciation, be it good or slightly spicy. Let's just jump straight into the fantasy stuff now. Less vocab. Who have you got at number 1?
Well, hold on. Before we do that, I think we've got to have a little bit of an interview because Mel has had a chat with someone.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes, Mel has had a chat with Maeve Chaplin, someone who featured prominently in our size last year. Let's go listen to that now.
And welcome to Free Kick. I'm Mel, and today I'm joined by Melbourne Demon and 2024 All-Australian squad member, Maeve Chaplin. Maeve, how's it going?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good. Crisp
That's
morning
good.
for you to be starting training already?
Yes. It's been quite cold, the trainings lately, icy, but it's been good. Yeah.
Yep, getting into it. So, starting with last season was an absolute breakout year for you, particularly with your intercepting role. And I'm sure you've heard these stats already before, but you played every game. You were second averaging intercept defender at Melbourne to Eliza McNamara and 10th overall average in the competition, which is huge. And, All-Australian squad member. Do you have a standout moment or memory from last season that you're really proud of in particular?
Gosh. I think sort of just our team's ability to turn around the season towards the back half. I think we started off the season a bit less than what we were sort of aiming for, not as good. But I think our ability after round 5 or round 6, I think, to turn our game style around and to be able to adapt and play more of a game style that suits us was beneficial to success. So I think... the back half of our season, I think I was really proud that we were able to still stick it out and play well and play together and stay united as a group. So I think that was probably my highlight of the year.
That's such a humble response. Instead of being like some kind of breakthrough that you had personally, you're like the whole club.
Yeah, it's the whole team.
That's good. So in terms of maybe you a little bit more personally, you mentioned in some of the interviews I've seen from you from last season that it was like the like extra mile you went to in the last preseason that really you feel like helped elevate your game. Now that we're a couple of weeks into this preseason, how are you approaching it? And is there something in particular you're really working on?
Yeah, there's plenty I'm working on. I think just going into this season, I want to be consistent with just like my communication and my ability to help the team and be a good team player. And then also just like off field, just like being strong and like physically strong and also mentally strong, like getting myself into a good space where I was able to compete to my 100% and not putting expectations on anything that I should be achieving or how I should be playing, because every season's different. So regardless of how last season went for me personally, this season's a new season, and just like sort of attacking it how I would every other preseason, and just building that consistency and continuity in my game. I think it's just been my main mindset. Just taking away that expectation that I have to be a sort of certain person or player because of what I did achieve last year. Like every season's going to be different, so you have to go in with a different approach. So yeah, I think that's probably been my main one.
Yeah, that sounds like a great way to be approaching it. I mean, not to dwell on it, but like if that approach worked for you so well last season and you were able to like kind of elevate your game, hopefully, regardless of where the season goes, that's going to work out really well for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. So you kind of mentioned that the Demons really turned it around from game 5 last season, but like at the end of it, probably a disappointing finish, given that it was the first time the Demons hadn't made finals in a while. Now that we're like starting up the season again, what's mixed message been to the group around kind of like what you're aiming for this season and how you're going to get there?
Well, obviously it's our 10th season as a club going into the AFLW. So I think just building on the legacy that's come before us, and playing for those that played before us and got us to where we are as a league now. I think that's sort of been our mindset, and just having fun as a group. Footy is fun. That's why we play, and that's why we started as kids. So I think just really tapping into that and just enjoying what we're doing and being present and in the moment. It's such a special thing that we're doing, and that we're creating the legacy for younger girls playing now to be able to look up to us. I think just sort of playing with that mindset that what we're doing is greater than just playing footy. I think that's been our main sort of messaging this year. Have fun.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of like legacy and players that came before you and got you here for the 10 years, seeing Daisy Pearce inducted into the Hall of Fame the other day, that would have been pretty special.
Oh, it's so cool. Like, so cool. I can't believe it. Like, that's just such an unreal thing for her. I'm just so proud of her. And just, it goes to show that women are changing sport, and it's really exciting, and really it's such a privilege to be able to play with her and call her a teammate.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so maybe looking a little bit more specifically at some of the lines at the Demons. So the defense has typically been very stingy, and unfortunately last season saw a bit of a increase in opposition inside 50s there. But what's been the focus for the defensive group this preseason to be tightening things back up?
I think the main thing amongst us is just building our trust and connection so that that can relay onto the field. So building those friendships and like that trust in each other off field will help us be able to translate that onto field. So then we know and understand each other's strengths, weaknesses, and like the role that we're playing for the team. So I think we're trying to just build on that slowly. So we're a strong, united group, and we understand how we're going to work in challenging times and stuff, because the ball can come in quite often and in the defense, and it can be hot and rapid. So just be able to like be composed and work with each other to overcome that. I think it's just going to be a mindset game for us more than anything. So I think we're just building on that trust and connection off field to keep building on field.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess like in terms of the connection, there's a few of the players in the back line that have been there for quite a while, quite senior, and I'm sure the connections would be pretty strong with those guys. But you've also got some like young defensive talent coming through. How's it been intertwining that and like, I guess, forming those new connections while maintaining the old ones?
Yeah, well, I think I like to say the back line's the best group, because I think we have the most fun out of all the other lines, just quietly. Like having those older connections, like the older group and the older leaders in the back line that sort of know what their expectation is as a player, to be able to show that to the younger players and bring them along is something really fun. Like we try to make that a fun environment for them. Like it's, at the end of the day, it is just footy and we're meant to have fun, and it can be a first season, it could be a second season, but like what you play in our team is a major role, like just being there and contributing and playing with like 100% dedication and effort. So I think that, yeah, having like the inspirational leaders in the older leaders in our backline helps the younger players just to be able to fit in and understand what is expected of them, but also it's to have fun. So I think it's working quite well.
Is there someone in the back line that's a real fun champion? That's real like bringing that energy, bringing the fun, like wooing everyone else up, or is it a bit of everyone?
Look, it's a bit of everyone. Everyone has their little quirks, but Gabby Colvin's always really funny. She's just such a firecracker and she's fun to play with. So she's always someone that makes you laugh.
Awesome. So moving over then to the forward line, Melbourne started off with a big blow with Taylor Harris injuring herself in the first game, unfortunately, with that shoulder injury, and then a few games without Eden Zanker.
Yeah.
I hope Eden Zanker's fully recovered now, but especially like how's Taylor looking, and are they all coming in fit?
Yeah, the forward line's looking really strong, really fit. Taylor's done amazing work in the off season to get her body right, and I'm really excited for what she's going to be able to do this season. Yeah, it's pretty cool just watching her train and like seeing what she brings every session. She's just such a natural athlete, so I'm excited for her this season. It'll be really good to see her get through a full season. And Ido's doing really well too. She's in a really good, strong position too. She's fit, along with like all of our other forwards, like Georgia Gall. She's coming through and she's really taking like strong marks and stuff, and she's really owning her presence down forward. So I think as a forward line, their coercion together to work together is really forming nicely, and it's good to see, and it's fun to play against them at training because they're working well together. So it's hard for the back line, but it's good challenge.
Yeah, love to hear that. And I guess the forward line is another one that kind of had a bit of a drop off in some of those key stats last year compared to where they've been in previous years. Is the message in the forward line as well similar to defence, like have fun and connect, or is there something in particular that they might be working on?
Yeah, have fun and connect, probably the main one across the whole team. But yeah, it's also just, I think for the forwards, it's not just on them to kick goals. Like the entries forward need to be good and to the advantage of our forwards to get them in the best position. So I think as much as the forwards have a role, like everyone has a role in locking the ball in the forward half and helping them play to their strengths. So yeah, it's a whole team dynamic thing. We've all got to work together to help each other.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the fixture this year, 12 games in 12 weeks, which we do love to see. And
Yeah.
two of the four matchups that haven't been seen before, two of them are with Melbourne. So Melbourne v Port, and then Melbourne versus Sydney in, I think, Pride round later.
Yes, yep.
How are you guys feeling about playing sides you haven't ever played before?
No, it's really exciting. I'm really excited. I think we obviously versed Port last year in the practice match, so we've got a little taste of what they're like as a group, but they were a strong competitive side last year, so it'll be good to see what they're like this year and be able to verse them in the actual season. So it's really exciting to be able to verse both those teams. And Sydney is obviously a very successful team that's relevant, like new to the program and to the league. They've been very successful, so it'll be good to verse them. And yeah, I'm excited. Like it's always good versing new teams, and I can't wait till we can verse every team in the league. Because you look at the fixture sometimes, like, oh bugger, I want to verse that team, but it's
Got to
good
wait till
verse new
next year.
teams. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yes, I agree.
yeah.
Cool. And then, so my wrap-up question, we do this wrap-up question for all of our interviewees, which is if you could name a breakout player or someone who's going to have a really big impact and lift their game to the next level this season, who would it be?
Oh my God, it's hard to name just one. There's a few I want to name. I think Megan Fitzsimons, she's obviously been in the program for a few years now, but I think just her work rate and her skills are just so underrated, and she's such a key part of our team. She plays a major role. So I think she'll have a breakout year. She's looking very fit this year. I think Georgia Gall as well, just chuck her in as well. She's really fit. She's done a lot of work in the off season. So I'm excited to see her up forward and see what she can do. She'll be damaging, I reckon.
Awesome. I mean, we'll take two. Two's good to hear as well.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our interview. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Cheers.
That was very well done, Mel, and thanks again, Maeve. That was a fascinating conversation. A lot about the mentality that the Melbourne team, in particular the defence, is trying to implement this year and kind of help to spur them on for that 5 wins in final 6 record that we did just speak about. Now, Jono, after the false start, who have you got as your number 1 most fantasy relevant this year?
Yeah, look, it might be a bit of a repetitive one here, but I think the number 1 player to talk about is always Kate Hoare, the absolute star player of that Melbourne midfield and forward line, a player that sort of splits responsibilities between the two. Personally, I think that for her, this season is one where we're going to see more midfield time again after pushing there last season. The return of Taylor Harris, as well as the development of a lot of players in that forward line, to me suggests she does not need to spend as much time up there. She can keep pushing those midfield numbers up. There isn't really a team that ran more people through the middle last year than Melbourne. I think they had 17 players with CBAs at some point throughout the year, which is absolutely wild. I think this year, there was a lot of experimentation last year. This year, we're probably going to see more consolidation. So I'm expecting that 63% CBA number that she had to push upward again, and I'm really hoping that she can crack into the 90s with a fantasy average this season.
Yeah, I think we've seen that when she doesn't have to spend too much time sitting inside D50, it can absolutely be a bigger score. And I will say, of all people who will sorely miss Lil Mithen, it is Kate Hoare playing as a forward, because Lil Myth has averaged about half a goal assist per game throughout her career, and I would say 95% of them are to Kate Hoare. I don't know how anyone hasn't realised that if Lil Mithen was lining up for a shot within anywhere that wasn't like 20 metres from goal, it wasn't going for goal. It was going for Kate Hoare. So it will be good to not have to rely on those points anymore if she is playing full-time mid. I think she's absolutely value. Do you think she's enough value to sit at M3, M4?
Oh, look, it's a year where there is a lot of value already baked into a lot of players that I'm looking at for M3, M4. So it's tough to start. But if she starts as I expect her to, she's going to be an important trade target for me. So if she comes out in the practice matches and she plays almost entirely midfield, then I'm going to be jumping on board.
Sadly, we do have the situation where Melbourne have the best or second best 3-game run for midfielders to start the season with the Bulldogs, St Kilda and Collingwood. So we are really getting the inverse of what we want, which is we want bad matchups to start for players that we're going to struggle to afford with all the value. And then they get bad, get cheap, and then we pick them and they become premiums again. So look, maybe the Western Bulldogs and St Kilda will become extremely tough matchups, and Richmond and Port Adelaide will become easy beats, and Kate Hoare will end up at our M5. If we aren't going Kate Hoare, though, is there someone else you're looking at?
Yeah, so my number 2 player is coming at the complete other end of the spectrum. We're going one of the cheaper draftees, and it's Molly O'Hare. So midfielder priced at $412K, thanks to being the pick 3 in the AFLW draft. Very, very talented, tall utility player that can really play on any line and is a great tackler. So looking at the Waffle W she played in last season, she averaged 67 playing for South Fremantle, and she was getting just shy of 20 disposals a game, but also 6 tackles. So a really reliable scorer, which I'm very excited to see. From the looks of the intra-clubs matches that they've played so far, it looks like she's likely to be starting in defence for the squad. And I think that's an area that I can see her getting some regular minutes in. Hearing from Maeve Chaplin there, it does sound like they're still trying to figure out how they're going to structure that backline. I think there's a lot of changes that have happened there in the last couple of seasons with the departures of Birch and Gay. And I can see O'Hare being a potential piece in that puzzle with a bit of run and dash off that backline. So I'm excited to see what she can bring in addition to her tackling pressure, but also bring that run out of the backline.
Yeah, I am also very keen to see how Molly O'Hare looks in the preseason. Priced, though, she's at $412K, so is a fairly expensive rookie by virtue of being pick 3. Does that mean we should be a little bit more circumspect and a little bit more critical, even if she is playing round 1? Just because it's not going to be that midfield role by the sounds of it. I would not be shocked if as a result of someone like O'Hare joining the team, Shelley Heath is someone who gets some more midfield time this season. Is it a reason to be concerned about O'Hare, or is it just temper your expectations and maybe we get rid of her from our teams if you do start a little bit earlier?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I'm looking at some of the other midfield rookies that would be starting, and I don't think a lot of the obvious picks are ones that are guaranteed to be playing midfield anyway. You look at Ash Centra, she's got the opportunity to be pushed forward. Zippy Fish is probably going to be in the back line. I think really it's not many of the rookies that are going to be running through the midfield itself, so I'm not so worried about that. It's just, I suppose with the fixture to start with, are we worried there's not going to be enough ball in that back line? So it's really about where you think the Dogs, St Kilda, and the Demons themselves are at. If you don't think that they're going to be magically fixing their problems and returning to that top four side they once were, then I think Molly O'Hare is a very good option.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with you, but I also just wanted to, tamp down some rampant overhype. Molly O'Hare looks like she could be a really good player, comes in with good pedigree from draft and from fantasy scoring, but the role might be one that isn't exactly ideal or isn't maybe what you would expect. So I definitely like her. She's on the preseason watch list. Who have you got written down next?
Yeah, so next player, forward line part of the ground, we're looking at Eden Zanker here, who is a forward priced at $625K, which is an average of about 48.3. She was incredible in that 2023 season, being tied for the AFLW's leading goal kicker, but she was much quieter in 2024. And I think there's a couple key reasons why. Firstly, she was managing a patella tendon injury throughout the season that did mean that she would miss games on occasion. But the other one, I suppose, is the absence of Taylor Harris, is that they had a bit of a restructure in that forward line. So she ended up being part of 3 talls again with Georgia Gall and Alyssa Bannon, both playing as key targets. But I really think that Zanker was getting the best defender every week. And that, I think, is less likely to happen with Taylor Harris back in the side. I'm very curious about how many of those talls that they're going to be playing in that forward line now. We were talking just before this. I was thinking that Georgia Gall was not probably going to be best 21 every week. But I think there's also scope, as you were saying, about Zanker or Bannon being pushed out of that forward line, playing a little bit further up the ground. Personally, I think whichever ends up happening, I think Zanker is going to be better off getting either a less capable defender playing on them or pushing further up the ground. They do have some experience playing towards that midfield wing position, and I think they can go back to averaging a much higher average. I mean, we've seen seasons of 65 plus in the past, and I think that is sort of the upside of what we could be seeing. I'm not 100% sure it's going to be happening, but I certainly think it's one to look at this preseason.
Yeah, she definitely scored better in season 8, where she did average that 65 with a high of 102. But a lot of those scores are built off the back of goals. So in that 102, it's 5 goals, and then in her better scores last season, highest of 79, that was the only game where she kicked more than 2 goals. She kicked 3. Actually, no, that's not even looking at the right season. That was season 8 as well. That was in the finals. So I think it's definitely someone who has scores built off goal scoring. So if she's going against a better defender, that's definitely going to be a benefit. I think I have all but given up hope of Eden Zanker, the midfielder. This is going back a very long way for listeners, well before we had a podcast, but Eden Zanker was an option in the first ever season of AFLW Fantasy, and we would watch going, she looks amazing, look at this freak athlete in the midfield, as a forward, and just didn't score. So I definitely see the appeal in the forward line where we're struggling for value. I just wonder if she's not going to kick goals, then maybe it's not as good as that season 8.
Yeah, I mean, if I were you, I wouldn't be looking at what she's done on the VFLW this season, because she's definitely had a couple games running through the midfield just to keep that little tease going.
I will believe it when I see it at the level.
No, it's a tricky one. Well, at least the next player we're going to be talking about is absolutely a midfielder. There's no questions about it. It's Olivia Purcell. So this midfielder priced at $923K, an average of 71.3. Very, very talented young player who unfortunately suffered a fractured cheekbone prior to the 2024 season and only returned late in the year. She played the final 4 games for an average of 71. I think there's definitely a lot of numbers in that year that don't support what kind of player she can be. I think there were very low tackle counts, and I think there's a lot of improvement that's in there where once you're a little bit more confident entering the contest because you're not wearing a face mask designed to protect your fractured face, I think that gives you a lot of ability to impact the contest more. I think they experimented a lot in the midfield last season, as we were saying, but now there's no Lily Mithen, there's no Grace Beasley, who's still recovering from an ACL injury. I think a lot of the players that were, sort of rotating through that midfield last year are less likely to be doing so early in the season. In every intra-club they've played so far, she's been a core member of that midfield. I think Purcell is going to be having an uninterrupted run at it, and I think there's a chance for her to go over 80 this season.
So I think that outside of the very good analysis you did on broken cheekbones, delightful, I think what you described with Liv Purcell is something that we have said on almost every single one of the Melbourne preview shows we've ever done, because she loves to average in the 70s and just have that one pop score where you go, oh, maybe she can do it. But the big thing is, has she figured out that she can actually kick the ball more often? Because that is the biggest problem with Liv Purcell, is her kick to handball ratio. So it's 42% of her disposals were kicks last year, which is bottom 20 in the competition, which is not ideal. And then she was bottom 25 with 45% in 2023. And I won't go through every single year, but it is her love of the hand pass, which really does impact her fantasy scoring as much as she's very good at finding the ball. Is this a case of you'll have to see it to believe it as well, where if she is looking like she's getting more involved in the kick mark transition game, I think that this is someone who's capable of averaging in the high 80s? Or would you be willing to just launch into it straight away?
Yeah, it is tricky. I think I would prefer to see it before launching into it straight away, but yeah, I want to kind of discount a lot of last season, because I think the way she was playing was definitely impacted by the fact that by the time she got back, the season was basically over for Melbourne. They were desperately trying to make finals, but it wasn't necessarily it, and I think that still would have affected how they were playing the game, throwing a little more players in there. I mean, I've always been less affected by the amount of handballs that players have to their kick ratio than you have. I think certain players love to kick it, but if you get enough of the ball, you're going to be averaging more. So personally, that's where I want her growth to be, is just getting her hands on the footy more. And I think having a full preseason, to me, is going to do more for that than anything else.
Yeah, that is fair enough. It's entirely possible that she has... it's basically going to take an Eliza West type of breakout, who was about the only full-time midfielder with more of a penchant for the handball than Liv Purcell. And once she left Melbourne and moved to Hawthorn, it ended up averaging 87 last year. So maybe that is on the cards for Purcell. Who is your final player to talk about?
Yeah, so this is the only player from this list that I've currently added to my fantasy side on the basis of doing the prep for this episode. It is Paxi Paxman. So she, for the first time, as far as I can remember, is listed as a defender and is priced at $601K, an average of 46.4. Last year was not her year. She had a recurring foot injury that meant she missed week 4, week 6, and then week 8 onwards. A very highly impacted season. But this year, I see a lot of promise. So Lily Mithen is gone, and Paxman is, as far as I can tell, has been training on the wing all preseason. I think she is going back to that role that used to be her own before she ended up on the defensive side of things last season. If we look at her past history, aside from that year of 46.4 last year, she is a very consistent 70-plus averaging player. She went 71 in 2023, 71.3 in season 7, 70 in season 6, and 80 in the 3 seasons before that. So an absolute legend of the game. I appreciate that she's getting a little bit older, but I don't think that in any way impacted her last season. To me, this is an injury-impacted season, and if she can return to that wing, I think there is a very comfortable 70 average waiting her if she can get a good run at it this year.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that the track record, it's almost like this is a will-type pick. one legend of the game has a bad season, you pick them up the season after, and they go back to something close. I really don't love the idea that a recurring foot problem is what cruelled their 2024, because foot issues are possibly the worst injury for a fantasy player, because you are required to be off your feet in order to recover, which means you lose the conditioning and you lose your time on ground, and that ultimately impacts you for the rest of the season. The biggest issue I have with Paxi is the fact that I don't trust them to be up and about each and every week, and or they cop an injury mid-game, which at the price that they're at would absolutely tank their value and make it a very awkward trade the week after, because of the fact that they're probably not going to be in a spot where you could launch off to someone that you really like at that point. I also just don't think that they're nearly quite as important. I think that the player that's overtaken them in this team will be Megan Fitzsimon, who was the player that was mentioned by Maeve Chaplin as the one to watch out for this season. I think that Paxi is a legend of the game, but I don't think that her scoring ways are returning this year.
I'm certainly not expecting the heights of 80, so I can appreciate that. And Fitzsimon and McNamara are genuine guns. I can see them getting a lot of time on those wings this year. But I think you have more than 2 wingers in a game because no one can run games out entirely. I think you end up with a rotation of at least 3. So I think Paxman will be there. This does, in every way, shape, and form, feel like a will pick that I'm doing here. I appreciate that. But when we talk about fitness, the one thing that got me over the line for this was at their intra-club recently, they played 6 quarters and Paxman played all 6 quarters. To me, if you've got any sort of concern about that foot injury still being there, you don't play them for 6 quarters. You don't try and overload that foot. So to me, that suggests that she's over it. And I'm very hopeful that we'll see that coming, the match sim, the practice matches, and we'll be able to make sure of it, because limited game time there will be something that we'll be watching for.
That is a
but to
very
me,
good point.
if she's getting the game time that we would see in previous seasons, then I'm happy to run into that with round 1.
Yeah, and that price point at 600k, I think we've talked at length in these episodes and in the Defender episode that it is the hardest line to pick this year. So searching up and down Dale for any value and any potential consistency is absolutely where we should be looking. Speaking of, my pick for fantasy relevant player is another defender, and it is Shelley Heath. I struggled really badly with trying to pick a player for Melbourne because their scoring is so concentrated in their midfield. Shelley Heath is the highest averaging non-mid in fantasy this year, and it's at 699k, priced at an average of 54. That makes it really tough. I personally think that, and there are some preseason training reports, that Shelley Heath is released from only going into the midfield to play a tagging role and may actually be given more capacity to be a high tackling defensive midfielder. And I think that bodes well for her scoring, because this is someone who last season, when in that CBA role, averaged to 63.5. The idea that this is something that's been deployed as well in the preseason, I also like. It's not someone I got in my team. But if I'm searching for some value, I think that Shelley Heath, with defensive status and a potential midfield role, wouldn't be shocked if we saw something akin to what Sinead Goldrick was able to do for the first half of last year.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's tough to figure out who's going to be in that Melbourne midfield, because you'd think that Hanks, Hoare, and Purcell will be there. But beyond that, I do think there's a lot of different players they could run through there as that 4th, 5th rotation. So it'll be interesting to see what they do come this season. If it is Shelley Heath, then absolutely I like this pick a lot.
Yeah, it's one that I will be actively watching for in the preseason. Another just like slight roughie is Riley Wotherspoon, who was played mainly as a forward last year, but with the athletic profile that she has, combined with her extremely limited experience, I think she played like 3 games at under 18 level before getting picked. This is just someone that I'm just wanting to keep tabs on. There's just enough talent there. with forward status, I wouldn't be shocked if she's the player that goes in there. And I think had like a 95 when playing for Casey in the VFLW this preseason. A name to keep the tabs on. And Melbourne was a very fruitful spot for the preseason last year. We did get to see a better role for Maeve Chaplin. We ended up being able to capitalise on that. The same goes for Goldrick. And then we were also, a lot of us were invested in Kate Hoare as well. It's going to be a fascinating spot for the preseason. Hopefully, you've got something useful out of today's episode. I've been talking to Jono / Will, and it's been hard to tell who is who. I felt like it was Jono until we heard Paxi Paxman. But hopefully you've all enjoyed today. You'll hear from us a lot more soon. Make sure that you are following along on all of our social media platforms, and make sure you are subscribed to our Substack, where you will be getting AFLW team preview articles every single time we release one of these podcasts, and it's a great resource if you are trying to figure out more than just the fantasy game and try and delve into why these teams are the way they are on an actual AFLW level. So hopefully you are enjoying those. If you haven't started reading them, no better time than the present. So you'll hear from us soon. See ya.
Bye.